Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Assemble. My name's High Ruler, and today we have some interesting things to talk about. So, yesterday there were a few things that were happening within the overall kind of Avengers space. First was obviously the Jason Schreier tweet. Second was a PC Gamer article, and I didn't cover the PC Gamer article yesterday when I was talking overall about their statement, but I will link it in the description below. Other than some minor, and I say minor, but some inconsistencies in the reporting there, kind of what the PC Gamer article was talking about is kind of how stuff like this is kind of like a precursor to a free-to-play kind of model of the game, right? So, with that being said, obviously now today we have an IGN article, and what I'm going to do is kind of talk about the IGN article. I'm going to go through it, talk about it, and then I'm going to talk about why this is all so troubling and why the PR part of this game has really failed in so many different ways. And that's going to be kind of the video today. So the IGN article is by Simon Carty, and it starts saying, Marvel's Avengers is a game that perhaps against my better judgment, I have a lot of hope, a lot of love for. Its single-player campaign featured a big, fun story, but its endgame cooperative component stumbled out of the gate with a lack of compelling post-campaign content, and it's never really improved since launch. Considering its subject matter, one might associate with the Titanic-esque too-big-to-fail theory, but recent updates have got me genuinely concerned about its future. The announcement of a major XP grind rework is perhaps the most worrying sign yet, as developers continue to fix problems that aren't actually Avengers' biggest issues. Having spent well over 150 hours in Marvel's Avengers, its core combat and the way it makes each character's abilities feel is what kept me coming back, despite a lack of content. Whether that be new mission types, enemy types, or even locations, it's all lacking. Case in point, 6 months after launch, there are still only 4 bosses available to fight, and that has been the same since launch. Only half of these, Taskmaster and Abomination, are actually supervillains. For the many who haven't spent all the time playing the online component and grinding their heroes up, but were perhaps considering jumping in alongside the next-gen version launch, or the new Hawkeye story content, that time will now be even more of a slog. As you grind your heroes up, each of their 50 levels, you unlock abilities that really put on and show the fun that can be had with Avengers, and gaining access to these new powers regularly is what keeps it from becoming stale. The dev team recently announced an XP rework that will make grinding heroes a slower process than before, making an already repetitive process an even longer one. As detailed in a blog post, a reevaluation of how quickly XP was born from concerns about this pacing. And it quotes obviously the first one. So next it says, while most RPGs I've ever played do require more XP per level than the preceding ones, these tend to offer a level or variety in the replayability that Avengers simply doesn't have. In fact, the speed in which you level up characters and gain new superhero powers is one of the more welcoming aspects of Avengers post-game. For an experience designed to let you play as some of the most beloved superheroes of all time, constantly gaining new abilities and mixing and matching them to create your own version of these heroes what kept me playing continuously early on, and I never found it overwhelming. This decision is a little bewildering, especially when coupled with the minimal amount of content added since launch. The XP rework wouldn't seem like such an unnecessary change if there was enough variety in gameplay to support it, but without that, it feels like a step in the wrong direction. Adding more of a grind to a game that is at its least enjoyable when grinding is not what anyone is looking for. It's especially frustrating because I've remained hopeful. On the eve of every War Table stream that's come along, I've thought to myself, maybe this is the one where the problems are addressed. That thought has yet to become a reality. There's been no word of the secret lab missions that are meant to test max level characters, and without these, there's very little incentive to grind for better loot at all. Months have passed without any sign of a roadmap for their addition, and it's just hard to not feel worried by this, especially when, bizarrely, some players managed to accidentally play part of the secret lab missions back in September. Considering the state of the world right now, there are surely valid reasons for the delays to some of the announced content, but its lack of communication to Marvel's Avengers' dedicated player base, coupled with suddenness of announcements like these that are frustrating. March 18th could have been a moment where Marvel's Avengers rewrites some of its wrongs to bring back lapsed players and attract a new group of players as Hawkeye enters the fight alongside his series of story missions plus the arrival of the PS5 and Series X versions. But many may now be put off by the increased grind that awaits them. The XP curve change won't apply until that date, meaning there's an incentive for players who currently own the game to play now if they want an easier ride to level 50, and even the developers seem to know that. And they quote obviously what they say. This will leave many caught between the decision of playing the same missions in an inferior version of the game now, or waiting to play a technically enhanced version but for a lot longer. What should have been an exciting new beginning for Marvel's Avengers may well turn to a stuttering restart with a player base consisting of fatigued veterans and bemused newcomers. I want to love Marvel's Avengers in a year's time. I want to look back and see the success it's become. For that to happen, though, there needs to be better communication with fans and a genuine back and forth regarding the issues fans have with the game. Of all the complaints I've seen about Marvel's Avengers, none were about how surprisingly quick leveling up your heroes can be, but almost all have been about the dearth of fun to be had once you've done that. Hopefully the too big to fail theory plays out, and I'll be enjoying this game for years to come. But this week's announcement felt like an unhelpful shift in the current ahead of a potential iceberg arriving on March 18th. And then he lists out Simon Cardy is currently a power level 150 Iron Man, Thor, and Black Widow, but no reason to use him. Okay, so let's talk about some things now with regards to why these articles, both the PC Gamer one, which talks about how some of these changes are kind of precursor to free to play, and why this one is really bad for the game in general. Okay, so when we look at kind of articles like these, and we look at what they're kind of referencing in the story they're trying to paint, it really seems like the PR strategy behind this game is not doing themselves any favors, right? So what has happened is this first kind of blog post really kind of didn't outline the expectations of what there is. Basically you kind of see that, oh, they're increasing the amount of XP. And then, I actually, in the first video, I said, depending on the amount of XP, the exponential growth in the XP from 25 to 26 and so on and so forth, this could actually be really bad. But I said, there's also a possibility that this actually could not be that bad. And it's just like little tweaks here and there. In my framework of that video, I said there's two things that need to be satisfied. I said, first, the XP needed had to be not that bad, right? It had to be pretty, okay comparatively to what there is. We didn't find that out here, right? They never talked about this here. Second, I said that the content has to support any extra grind, and this is new content. I said, if you're going back and you're having to play old missions, and Trix commented in the last video saying, are players just going to go back and play Day of the Remains over and over for those extra time? If your players are going back to old content just to make up the artificial grind that you've instituted in your game now, you've failed, okay? Under my existing framework, they've satisfied personally one of those aspects right now. The second one hasn't really been addressed, and it won't be addressed until I literally get my hands on the game on the 18th and I can actually see it. So let's talk about the communication strategy now behind everything that's gone on over the last few days and why this is really troubling. For anyone who's followed the game, we know that they have a really hard time getting ahead of any narrative or any sort of communication, and kind of once something is out there, they can't get a hold of the story again, right? They've done an embarrassingly bad job at kind of crafting a narrative and having the community go with it. Embarrassingly bad job. So, case in point, let's walk through what has happened. They put out a blog post, which is great. Don't get me wrong. And an idea of the blog post outlining kind of your changes, your steps. Great. Here's the problem. This is very vague, right? And I said this. I said they needed graphs. They needed charts. They needed some sort of data to support what they're saying and to outline and illustrate the points that they're trying to make so that players can understand what is going on, right? That didn't happen. So what do we get? We get a Drayson Schreier tweet. We get Greg Miller on his replies. We get a PC Gamer article. And then what they do is they put out a statement at 10 o'clock at night on a weekday, why? And to me, and I understand there's going to be some differences here of how this reads, but this really reads snarky to me. It just reeks of snark to me. And to me, this is super unprofessional in a lot of different ways. First and foremost, if you're getting outside criticism from articles, publications, writers, editors, whoever, make sure your statement is public enough to push back on it, right? Don't post this in a Discord. Don't post this in a subreddit for your hardcore players. Your hardcore players are going to find the information, whether it's through a YouTube video or they go to the Discord or they go to the subreddit. Your hardcore players will find that information. What you need to do is you need to win the war of words against some of these things. If people are going to say, this XP change is going to add so and so much grind, come out and say hey guys, this is what it's going to add. And to their credit, this actually does say it, this actually says they just want to add about 3 to 5 more hours. Okay. This means leveling at a steadier pace around 2 to 4 missions at the upper end. Okay. If this information was in the original blog post, yes, there will be people still upset. I get it. I understand you guys. Trust me. If this turns out to be 3 to 5 hours, but I'm having to run Day of the Remains for those 3 to 5 hours, trust me, I will be with you on the 18th. All right? Trust me. But if they add this information to the original blog post, there's clarification, there's supporting evidence, there's data there, there's context. Like there's so much more that it just feels like they left off. Why? Why? Like the moment you leave out any information and you let people kind of wiggle their way in and fit a narrative that may not even be true, you've lost. You've already lost. And that's the problem. That is the problem. And now what has happened is when you make a statement that's like almost hiding in plain sight, like they're not going to amend a story that maybe they wrote last night or early this morning, because these guys aren't going to care to go to a Discord or go to a subreddit. They don't care. They don't care. They're going to write with publicly available information at the ease of their fingertips, right? So it's like, oh, they have an official blog post about this? Done. Like that's it. Like what is going on with the PR strategy that your clarification isn't in a blog post or isn't in a tweet or isn't in a Facebook post? Like what is going on with you guys? I'm sorry. Like I don't think the change is that bad. I really don't. The strategy and the communication behind it, awful. Absolutely awful. And I really was hoping to kind of say this on a stream tonight because they just don't do themselves any favors. They really don't. In some ways, it really just feels like the people who are in charge of the communication strategy, and once again, I'm not talking about the boots on the ground people who interact with the community at all. I'm talking the people who make the decisions with regards to PR strategy and communication are just so out of touch with what this community needs that it is mind-blowingly, like, it just blows my mind that you're going to let people just craft a narrative or not even push back on things or like come on, man. Like bullshit. And to Simon's credit, he does say that. Like I've never really read a Simon Cardy article before, and other than some grammar and some other things, he does seemingly tackle a lot of the issues, right? With communication, no roadmap, this and that. Like these are communication issues that should be addressed, because once again, if they start addressing things, start talking, using data, context, support your arguments that you're making with changes to the game, let players have all the information, right? At some point, like, they have to get it through their heads, right? It's not good. This is not good enough. Like, this really isn't good enough. I'm sorry. Like, putting something on a Discord and a Reddit, not good enough. Do better. Like, this is terrible. Like, I love the game. I love a lot of the people working on the game. I love the community that I'm a part of with the game. But the PR strategy behind this game leaves a lot to be desired. And I'm sorry if this is the best you can do at 10 o'clock at night, you know, and you're gonna post this hiding in plain sight. Why even bother? Really, why even bother? This just needed more information, and unfortunately, we get it in this, and it's just brutal. Anyways, I don't know what else to say, guys. Until the PR strategy and the communication gets better, expect to see more articles like these. And you know what? Let them, because at this point, listen, the content stuff is there, and it's whatever, right? I can't make people work faster. I wouldn't even if I could, right? But communication really just requires some fucking signatures and people saying, okay, do it. And at this point, whoever is designing the communication strategy and whoever's signing it off, whether that's some, people at Square Enix or Marvel Games, whoever is kind of crafting the strategy behind this, it's very clear that they have no fucking idea what they're doing. And that's the truth. Make sure you guys go ding the subscription button, and I'll see you guys later.